T minus 30 seconds. T minus 20 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. It's a depression. Everybody's out of work or scared of losing their job. The dollar buys a nickel's worth. Banks are going bust. Shopkeepers keep a gun under the counter. Punks are running wild in the street, and there's nobody anywhere who seems to know what to do, and there's no end to it. We know the air is unfit to breathe, and our food is unfit to eat. We sit watching our TVs while some local newscaster tells us that today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be. We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy. It's like everything everywhere is going crazy, so we don't go out anymore. We sit in the house, and slowly the world we're living in is getting smaller, and all we say is, please, at least leave us alone in our living rooms. Let me have my toaster and my TV and my steel-belted radios, and I won't say anything. Just leave us alone. Well, I'm not going to leave you alone. I want you to get mad. I don't want you to protest. I don't want you to riot. I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the street. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being. My life has value.
Good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Global Watchman News. My name is Lori Swan. I hope you guys are all doing well. If you are in the live chat, we do ask to keep it family friendly. There will be moderators in there to make sure that we stay within the terms of service put forth to us by the platform we're utilizing tonight. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Take a minute, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell so you know when we go live. So it's Wednesday night, and you all know what Wednesday night means. That means that we are having back to the panel our good friend, Big John. Welcome back, Big John.
It's your old pal back again one more time.
Your old pal, exactly. Love hearing that. We have, of course, we have Ernie and we have Trish joining us tonight. Hello, guys.
Hello.
I'm not here.
Liar pants. And because of the topic we're going to have, or we're going to be talking to you guys tonight, I asked a very special friend of mine, Hurricane Ann, to join us because she brought a lot of this information to me a couple of years ago while she was doing research for a couple of her videos, one about Walt Disney. So welcome, Ann.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So the topic we're going to talk about tonight We're going to get right into it because we have a lot of information to present to you. First off, I just want to, how is everybody?
All good.
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 Good. Okay, we can hear everybody. Ernie, you're here.
No, I'm not. But I'm good.
Are you?
Yeah, I'm very
Okay.
good.
Awesome. I'm glad. So, like I said, we're going to get right into it because there's a lot of information to present to you tonight. So, we've been talking to you guys about Tartaria. We've been talking to you guys about the technology, the hidden history, the idea that things are not the way they're talking about. Last week, we played you a very interesting video talking about the coalition between Cabbage Patch babies or Cabbage Patch kids. And the possibility of the orphan trains or the orphans. Tonight, we're going to talk a little bit more about that, but we're also going to get into the insane asylums, the orphan trains, the technology of the World's Fair, and most importantly, we're going to talk to you guys about a bone-chilling correlation with the use of baby incubators and the things that were happening back in the late 1800s. So what I want to do is I want to start off to play a video. There's a couple of videos. The first one, there's actually two videos, but I'll play the first one and then we'll come back and we'll talk about it. And then the second one is going to put us into talking about the topic for tonight.
The great Tartarian all you can do is find false, drop it and get rid of it, and eventually when you can't get rid of any more false, what you're left with is the truth. How much false can you find? Because there's lots in history. I was looking around the internet and came across the images of the 1893 Chicago World Exposition, and it blew my mind because it looked like ancient Rome in the middle of downtown Chicago. And as I looked at it further, well, here's another one in Philadelphia. Here's another one in St. Louis, in Buffalo, in San Francisco. And then as soon as they were done, they tore them all down and threw them in the garbage. That just told me there's something wrong with all of these. The story of the expositions is a gigantic lie. And I think it's so huge of a lie because I think they're right at a bridge point when so many things about the 1800s that seem strange and weird, right as this sort of period ends of unbelievable strangeness, and all of a sudden these fairs spring up all over the world with impossible buildings we're talking about, which are colossal structures. Chicago built 700 acres of fair in supposedly less than 2 years. St. Louis built 1,200 acres of exposition buildings. One of the buildings in Chicago, the manufacturer's building, would house 300,000 people. There's a giant statue in the middle of the lagoon. It was called the Golden Lady, and it was known as the Statue of the Republic. It was 65 feet tall. They say it was covered in gold leaves that had copper underneath, but others speculate it was actually made out of solid gold. So you're talking 65-foot high, potentially solid gold statue. We're talking giant structures and looking like ancient Rome with towers and domes and columns and the most fine, ornate pieces to them in these record, unbelievable times. Then as soon as they're done, chuck them in the garbage. Like Jackson Park is a swamp. So supposedly they had to drive down tens of thousands of wooden stakes in order to support the weight of everything. They dug out massive lagoons, lakes. They had a canal system that ran through the entire exposition. They also had an above-ground electric train. An electric train, well, where's the electricity coming from? That's running around the park. They had a moving walkway down by the shore. Not enough people are asking, where does this technology come from?
Just to frame it, if I'm not mistaken, the Chicago Fair was the first time people had seen electric light.
Tesla's the one who got the electricity contract for the Chicago Exposition, and it was certainly more than all of the lights anyway that were in New York City at the time were at the Chicago Exposition.
Now, it must have been mind-blowing for most of those people who had only seen gaslight or candlelight at night to see that city lit up in such a way. Again, count the ways. It's 1901. We are told, whether it's true or not, the idea of being able to electrically do anything hasn't been around that long.
And this fair is bizarre. This is supposed to be Tesla's fair, where he managed to somehow move electricity from Niagara Falls to Buffalo for the fair. No one's really explained how he actually did that. And at the middle of the fair is a 395-foot high electrical tower. on top of which, of course, is a female golden statue called the Goddess of Light. That this thing was lit up by, some suggest, 500,000 electric light bulbs. Again, when you look at the photos of this thing, it's just, where do they really get the power from?
I mean, think of what it would take today if you had a place with no electricity and no way to pipe it in, the generators that would have to be built.
For example, there's a building that went up for the Barcelona exposition in 1888. It was claimed to be the fastest built building in the world, 5,000 square meters, capacity for 2,000 guests, 600 rooms, 30 apartments, and it was supposed to be built in 53 days. This is supposed to be a time of horse and buggy. The 2-year building times are actually impossible unless the two most likely theories would be either A, they had a technology that they're not supposed to have, and it really was built in that time frame. Even if they built them, they had to build them out of marble and stone in record time, or the buildings were already there. They'd been there for hundreds or thousands of years, fixed up, refurbished, repainted, hence the term whitewashed, which is the term that was used for the Chicago Exposition, which was paint all the buildings with this brand new spray paint that they had just developed to spray paint all the buildings in record time, so you couldn't tell if anything was old or anything was new.
How long did these things tend to stay open? When they built these things, supposedly over 2 years, which is the narrative, how long were they there for?
About 6 months.
6 months for the public to come.
And then what was amazing, for example, in St. Louis, 2 days after the fair ended, they brought in a demolition team from Chicago with explosives and blew the thing up. They actually used dynamite to blow it up, and they say threw it in landfills. Things like the World Fairs shows there was a time in our past, and even not that far in our past, where humans seem to be at a completely higher level. Human living and human knowledge were constructed into the buildings using cymatics, using sacred geometry. These fairs, they're so important to study because the history that we know right now as history was invented at the time these fairs were going on. One of their underlying nefarious purposes was to teach a historical narrative to the population that they were supposed to believe and agree with. And scarily, the world we're walking into today is in some way, has its origins during the time of these fairs.
Wow.
Ooh, we lost Ann. Yeah, wow. 52 days to build something out of stone and that massive. Big John, is that possible?
Well, yeah, if you got that kind of hidden technology, it is.
It's just, I mean, these buildings were massive, and not to mention the light bulbs. We're talking at a time. There she is. We're talking at a time when electricity was a baby. It was brand new. Okay, now think about this. It was
not just that, but the cars too.
Right.
To transport the material. I mean, I work in that field, design and stuff.
The logistics alone
doesn't make any sense to me.
Right. So when you think about the electricity, it was a brand new, electricity was babies. Light bulbs was in its infant stage. And you've got these 500,000 light bulbs, and yet they're all glowing like to full power for extended length of time.
Did they say the purpose was to like educate the public or something, and then they showed a little thing of dinosaurs? I'm wondering if that was the kickoff of the whole, we evolved from monkeys and dinosaurs roamed the earth. Is that when that started?
I have no idea.
Because it was on did you see it? It was on the outside of the building.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the Smithsonian. Well, of course, Darwin and then the Huxleys. They pushed the whole narrative into the early 1900s with James Wesley Powell, the Smithsonian, that it was isolationism and Darwinism. That's what they pushed. That basically, Darwin's theory of evolution. So, it seemed to me like it was too easy to use Tesla's technology or other out of the world technology to accomplish these things, with the wireless electricity, and obviously how he lit up the light bulbs with no wiring, and then the movement of electrogravital train, which Hitler had a nuclear drill, so I mean a nuclear power drill, that drilled underneath the mountain range between Argentina and Antarctica. So I mean, Electro Rail, they say they got one of those underneath the United States. So I mean, that's to me that was just old technology that they had the blueprints for.
Right. Yeah, there's supposedly the train that goes between New York and LA, and you get there 3 hours, I think it is.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, it literally, that's how like senators and stuff pop up. I mean, I've noticed that people pop up out of, like how they fly over there so fast, but it's way.
They're like bunny rabbits.
Yeah.
They just pop
That's
up.
funny.
So these buildings, I mean, literally these huge, massive brick and concrete or whatever they were built out of buildings. I mean, literally to house, I think the one housed 200,000 people, and they had the ability to make these things, and then they just destroyed them. That doesn't make any sense to me. To spend all that money, that's not. Even if you're a piss poor business person, that's still a very poor business plan. Because you could you could revitalize the buildings and use them for something else. I mean, think about it. Why didn't they just continue the building and put it in as a hotel? It was already there. They already had the rooms. They already had the banquet halls. They already had the apartments.
I think I know why.
Why?
They didn't have kitchens or bathrooms. There was no plumbing in these Tartarian, mud-fled, ruminant buildings that they had there. So they had to, one, do that. And two, maybe, let me play the devil's advocate, even though we always agree. What if it was a good business decision? Okay, so say you have a chicken house, like we're the chickens, right? You can either have a chicken coop that you don't give a damn about, and you're still going to get the same amount of eggs, and you're just not putting all the work into it, but you're just letting the chickens just get you more eggs for less money. Well, if they would have kept up that standard of those castle-like institutions and homes and fancy buildings, that's very, very, very expensive. I mean, they really didn't even have the means to do it. They really couldn't even reproduce it. So they were just bullshitting, right? So why not just build what they could build, the cheaper stuff, and let the little slaves like us, menial people live in little menial places. That's probably how they feel about us, like little chickens in the coop.
Yeah, that's interesting.
That's just my thought,
Yeah, well, that's a good thought too.
But there was no plumbing either.
Yeah, and some of the footage or pictures, like I just don't think everybody in the United States is wearing those kinds of like gowns and suits. You know what I mean? It looks like more of an elitist type festival. Where the country folk ain't gonna show up. You know what I mean?
I have a weird question. Where were there ancient porta potties? How'd these people go pee?
In the pool?
Yeah. Didn't it show like
nobody
knows. By the waters?
Nobody knows. Nobody really knows. There's just no plumbing. Not one single bit of plumbing in any of these buildings or kitchens. It's like they didn't drink and they didn't go poo and they didn't go pee and nothing. Like they're just aliens. I don't know.
I was just about to say that. What if they're not humans?
I don't even have a clue. I have no clue. I don't even know. I mean, I've done a lot of research, but I have found nothing on that.
Because it'd be a contaminant. It'd be a biohazard for them not to have outhouse facilities. And I doubt porta potties existed.
It would be a cesspool of germs and disease. Yeah, and Anne has done a lot of research on looking at this stuff too. So she says that there was no plumbing in these things. I tend to have to believe that. I have another video, and I want you guys to specifically pay attention to the cities and what he says in this. And I'm not going to play the whole thing, I don't think.
Welcome to Canada. This is what our cities look like. When I mention to another Canadian that our cities are hideously ugly, most people are either insulted or they just think that I'm a weirdo for even noticing. At least if they're insulted, you know that they see their environment as an extension of themselves, as one should, and hence why they take my criticism of their surroundings personally. But it's not meant as a personal insult. It's just an objective observation of a space that we both share. Our standards are so far gone that most people will defend this ugliness, perhaps because the external has been made internal, who knows? But most often there's just a casual, things just are the way they are. And why do you care? And what are you going to do about it? Well, I have a lot of ideas. I have a few for sure. And but until then, I'm going to make this video and just hope that people share it. So first, we need a little bit of context. It's difficult to have a conversation with somebody about art and beauty when they've been drowning in a type of architecture called brutalism. That's right. It's called brutalism, the stuff that we see everywhere. Brutalism. That's their name for it. Stripped of anything decorative or meaningful, this architecture is favored by postmoderns and communists as a weapon against the people. The purpose of its construction is to foster alienation and atomization, and it really works. It works really well. It's very effective. This architecture is an expression of open hatred against humanity, and classical European architecture, whose purpose was to elevate the soul, is the primary victim of it. A key argument against building something beautiful is that it's simply too expensive. That's the thing. It's just, oh, well, we can't do this. It's too much money. It's too expensive. Well, imagine how much that cost. But the thing is that beauty pays for itself in countless ways, including financial. The endless, hideous third world strip malls of Canada are on nobody's must-see bucket list. Considering how we now have modern materials and construction methods, even 3D scanning and printing of industrial materials, there's no excuse to not choose the beautiful option. Inevitably, I'm told that Canada, like America, is just simply too young for grand, beautiful architecture, and that somehow, given enough time and enough immigration, Walmart will transform into something meaningful and transcendent. But here's the catch, and here's the crux of this video. We did have incredible, epic architecture similar to what one sees in areas of the old world that are still European, and almost all of it has been systematically, intentionally destroyed. Let's just step back and look at Toronto. Like nearly every single major city in the New World, in the late 1800s, Toronto suffered a devastating fire that destroyed most of it. Every major city had one of these fires. Every one, from Buffalo to Vancouver to New York to Toronto. You may think that Europe was the only part of the world leveled by the Rothschilds' banking cartel, but you'd be wrong. Even after the World Wars, they're not done. After World War II, mayors like Nathan Phillips, who it says here is to be remembered as Toronto's first Jewish mayor, he should actually be remembered that under his direction, the city of Toronto pursued an aggressive agenda of demolishing heritage structures throughout the city in order to modernize. Large blocks of downtown were purchased and razed, and many landmark buildings and neighborhoods were destroyed. From what I can see in my own research that I've done on this, it's over 200 buildings, 200 glorious buildings like this that were destroyed. This happened across the continent. Every major city was razed to the ground. We're only left with fragments of what was. I'm going to sit back now and just leave you with a presentation of architecture from the New World. Most of these structures have been deliberately destroyed or scrubbed into the memory hole. Most are parking lots or strip malls, or they've erected triumphant, disturbing monoliths in their place. Some remain, like the Banff Springs Hotel, and I suggest you visit these places to get a sense of just what's possible. And in Europe, in the future, a crazy lunatic will look at a building and say, this used to be beautiful, before being reported for hate speech. Luckily, destroying buildings can work both ways, and nobody will mourn the loss of what we have now.
Did anybody catch the whole, all these major cities all burnt to the ground? Do you think it's by coincidence?
Oh no, we don't believe in coincidences around here.
Look at these beautiful buildings. Look at these. They're built with architecture that we still don't see again today. Massive buildings that hold massive amounts of people. Now, this kind of, and I don't mean to I don't know, go against what you said in the last time, a couple minutes ago, but if these buildings didn't have the necessary amenities, then I mean, does it make sense now? I mean, we're talking huge buildings and these are just in the United States that they're showing here. But if you look over, in Europe, and you see these huge buildings, I don't think it mattered at the time if they had in-store plumbing, because you had
No, it probably didn't.
You had the urinals that went by the bed at night. You had the wash basins. You had all these things that they utilized before indoor plumbing. So to say that they destroyed
but
it,
then there's
because
the fact that they couldn't reproduce. They couldn't reproduce it, though. I think that might have just been one of the main problems, is they just couldn't even reproduce it at all. So if they couldn't reproduce it, that facade's over. You know what I mean? That's the only logical thing I can think of. That's
well, it
just,
takes me
I can't,
back
I
to
don't know.
NASA.
It's hard, isn't it?
Well, it takes us back to NASA. You know how NASA said, or tried to tell us, well, we can't go back to the moon because we lost the technology.
They still had movie cameras.
Bingo.
They still
That's
could
a
have.
great
They could have
example.
still filmed it.
Right. And look at this is not European buildings you're looking on the screen here, guys. This is all North America. St. Louis. Here's one in Vancouver. This is all North America. He's not even showing, stuff from the 12, 13, 1400s. He's showing this is new buildings.
Can I ask you something?
Yeah.
Did you know there was a tunnel underneath the water there in Chicago, from about a mile out in the water? The lake there goes all the way underground into Chicago since like before 1900.
You did tell me about that.
Yeah, baby. Yeah. Right there in your hometown.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's there. It was there. This is crazy stuff. They didn't have proper tunneling. They didn't have proper sewage, and supposedly Chicago was sinking, but yet they had horses and carts, right? Horses and carts, but yet they had a tunnel underneath the Great Lake there from a mile out underneath that water. Do y'all find this just crazy or what? That's just unbelievable to even imagine, isn't it?
Well, there's
where to go to.
Right.
It went. There was like a station in the middle of the water. Which one's the one right there by y'all, Lori?
What waterway?
In Chicago.
Lake Michigan.
Yeah.
Lake Michigan.
So it's Lake Michigan. So it was like a mile out, and it's like a big like a lighthouse or something, like a tower thing in the middle of the water that supposedly went all the way down into the water, down into underneath the ground in the water there, and tunneled all the way back to Chicago.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Wow.
Supposedly,
but that doesn't even make sense. I mean, if they haven't even figured out toiletry or toilets then.
Well, when you think about it though, because I mean, I think I talked about this when I got back from Seattle, where Seattle has the same thing. Seattle's history talks about a mud flood, talks about mud coming down and covering the city, and they had to rebuild on top of the mud. And there was all kinds of underground caverns throughout Seattle and Portland area. So that's where you get the whole word, they get shanghaied, because young people would go into bars, they would get drunk, and all of a sudden they would sit in these special chairs where they just flip a switch, and boom, the person would drop through the floor like they weren't even there, taken to the ships and taken out to be pretty much slaves on the ship. So
it was trafficking. So that's why they had that in.
Correct. Most of it was trafficking. And when we get into the whole orphan train thing here in a little bit, you're going to see that was also trafficking. So the things that we see that are happening today, we see that we think the things that, the children that are disappearing today, this is nothing, again, nothing new under the sun. So before we go on, I'm just going to play another one for us. This here, give me a second. Let me pull this down. This talks about Chicago. And the reason why I'm concentrating on Chicago is because we're going to talk about the Chicago World's Fair, because that was a significant point with the children. We're going to get to that. But this says, there are many maps that clearly show the name Chicago in the exact same location where Chicago would be 250 years prior. In the 1890s, a newspaper article from a Chicago Tribune covered this topic, but only 6 days later, a response was issued in order to cover up this subject. It is because they don't want people to know that Chicago is actually much older and was established by the Tartarians and not by the European colonists in the 1800s. When we connect this with the Chicago World's Fair, things start to make a lot of sense. So you can see why we want to play this one. Be right back.
In the modern day, we're taught that Chicago was built in the 1800s, but there's so much with that narrative that doesn't add up that it leads us to believe that there's something that was left out of the official history books. In 1605, a map published in Venice shows North America with many old world cities. Notice that the symbol to represent these cities is some type of red castle. Supposedly at the time that this was written, there was no English-speaking settlements on the North American continent. In the middle of the continent, past the end of the St. Lawrence River, appears the name Shalaga. And we can see this in a variety of different maps. It's right in the exact same place that Chicago would appear, and obviously, the name is extremely close. In 1894, the Chicago Tribune actually mentioned Shalaga being on a map from 1615. Chicago or Shalaga on an old map. Quote, President Harper of the University of Chicago has lately received a quaint map of the world. This map was presented to President Harper by Dr. Charles Richter, the Imperial German Representative Commissioner to the World's Fair. Now, isn't that interesting? It continues, the following letter of presentation accompanies the map. Quote, W.R. Harper, President of the University of Chicago. Dear Sir, when during the early preparatory stages of the exposition work efforts were made, mainly upon the investigation of Mr. Curtis to collect maps, supposition be correct, it is most likely on this map the name of Chicago in its original form appears for the first time. Quote, Herr Professor Graf of Dresden, who has taken a prominent interest in the researches to which the Chicago Exposition and the historic events underlying its existence have given so powerful an impulse, has upon a request arranged for a photographic reproduction of the maps in question. And as the representative of this commission and on behalf of Herr Professor Graf, I have the honor to request you to accept a copy of the same with the request that you give it an appropriate place in your university. And with the hope, also, that it will prove the warm interest that Germany has taken of old in that far-off period of history. I trust that you will accept this small token of esteem in the spirit in which it is given as a mark of appreciation, however inadequate, of the energetic efforts that are being made towards the propagation of science and education by the Chicago institutions generally, and your university especially, and as a manifestation of the interest which German scientists have taken. End quote. Okay, so Dr. Charles Richter was the Imperial German Representative Commissioner to the World's Fair, and it seems that he was trying to write to the university professor and attempt to speak about Shalaga appearing on old maps, and he even alludes to it having a connection with Germany. Obviously, there was some interest by people who knew none of the origins of the World Fairs into Chicago's ancient origins. But this is kind of where it gets even crazier. The newspaper actually had a follow-up 6 days later where they attempt to cover this whole thing up. Let's remember now that we understand the orphan asylums and that most of these people, especially the journalists and the German migrants, they wouldn't know the full history of this city. That knowledge would only be known by the secret orders who own the buildings and perhaps some higher-ups at these colleges. Now the headline of the newspaper reads, Shalaga is not the same as Chicago. Someone named C.F. Gunther writes in and says, quote, in the Tribune of Sunday, there appeared a map lately sent to President Harper of the University by Dr. Charles Richter, Imperial German Representative Commissioner, which is supposed to represent the oldest appearance of the name of Chicago, namely 1615. As no one questions this assumption, I am frank to say that it is unquestionably an error in every respect. It is not true that the so-called Shalaga on this map is at the exact point where the marvelous city is now located, but on the contrary, the country is marked Mexicana. Again, the so-called St. Lawrence River is not so far south. This river was well known at the time and should be at the top of the map. Hence, this is also a far-fetched assumption. It is self-evident that no one would put Chicago on a river running up in Mexico, for Chicago, situated on a chain of lakes nearly 1,000 miles long, omitting these lakes entirely and place it on a river going into Mexico. He continues trying to prove this Mexico argument and that Shalaga is actually spelled Shalapa. Now, this makes it very obvious that they didn't want this to be looked into at all, because the truth is, Shalaga is not spelled Shalapa, and it's on several maps in the 1500s. Many of the maps that show Shalaga closer south have been distorted, as with the German plate, but there are maps that show it in its correct position. Also, just because the map said Mexicana doesn't mean anything. In fact, Mexicana is said to have been all of California, Florida, Nova France, Noruega, Quivira, and many more. It wasn't literally just in Mexico. And it's very strange that someone at the university actually said this and ignored that Shalaga is actually accurately placed on Mercator's map, so there's obviously some type of cover-up going on. Also, another argument made is that Hochelaga appears on several maps, and that Shalaga is some corruption of that, but I think Hochelaga must have been some type of smaller settlement made around the ruins of Shalaga, possibly by cannibalistic tribes as mentioned in many books around this time. But this got me looking into the University of Chicago, and just take a look at this building, which was also graciously funded by John D. Rockefeller. So yeah, it's another castle, but just think about it. Why would the college try to cover up Shalaga? Well, it's because the officials, or those who were in control of Chicago at the time, were secret society orphans who had repopulated the city and educated the population. By this time in 1890, most of Chicago's population was transported in, and the people had no clue who actually built these structures. Just look at the University of Chicago's emblem in 1890. Looks like we have a griffin in flames. Maybe they're trying to tell us something? They tell us that Chicago was raised afoot because of swampland flooding. They tell us that they built a tunnel under the Chicago River. They tell us that there was a great fire, yet when we look at the old pictures of Chicago, it looks like a bomb went off. They tell us that Chicago's World Fair was built in less than 3 years. Even if this was done with plaster, this would have been a massive undertaking. Just look at these structures. Does this look temporary to you? The purpose of these fairs were to indoctrinate, and I wouldn't be surprised if people began asking questions. Look at Dr. Charles. He obviously was curious to Chicago's ancient origins, since it has been depicted in maps, and they were probably curious about who built all these structures, and so maybe the officials decided that they had to get rid of it, so they destroyed everything. These structures were not built in the 1800s. Chicago was an old world Tartarian city. It's even on Mercator's map from 1569, so why when you look up Shalaga does it say that it's only on a map in 1605? Very strange, right? And on the Mercator's map, there's a series of texts with Latin legends that actually talk about Tartaria. He mentions the Tartars almost 20 times on this map, and it's possible that they're the actual source for where Mercator actually got his info. He talks about a King John who had taken over the country of Tartaria, and basically in order to quell rebellion, he decided to disperse them into different countries, breaking their power of rebellion. But the Tartars were unwilling to give up their kinship, and of mutual association, they made a vow and fled to the northward, where they seized a very vast country. So Mercator was well aware of the Tartarians, and if they had complete control of the east, it's not that far of a stretch to assume that they would attempt to pass the Bering Strait. If we look at Arzareth, which is the land beyond the Great River, far away from the habitation of man, in which the 10 tribes of Israel will dwell, observing the laws of Moses until the time of restoration, Arzareth was clearly in Tartaria, right by the Bering Strait. The Tartarians, then trying to flee whatever king or parasites were trying to take over, they crossed into America and began creating cities, one of them being Shalaga. In America, being the latest and most accurate description of the New World, we actually have a paragraph that speaks of this exact situation. Quote, "The other Tartary, which certainly was the first nursery, from hence the Americans were transplanted. Tartary, or Tatary, so called from the river Tatar, which runs through the country Mongol into the Northern Ocean, covers a great part of the terrestrial globe. The Lesser Tartary makes out a considerable part of Europe. The greater is Asia. Now we must inquire from what Tartars the Americans extracted. Mornius, Postellus, Jean-Bardus, Proterus, and others are of the opinion that the Tartars, which about the year 1228, under the command of Zingis Khan, overspread the earth like a deluge, where the successors to the 10 tribes of Israel, which were carried into captivity to Assyria by Salmanazar, the Tartary, or rather Tartaria, seems to be some testimony thereof, because it signifies in the Syrian or Hebrew tongue remnants or remainders, as seemingly because these Tartarians were remainders of the forementioned tribes. End quote. So you tell me, what do you think? Is Chicago the ancient mythical city of Shalaga? If we connect this with the Chicago World Fair, then it actually starts to make a lot more sense. Do you guys have any finds to share on Shalaga? Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Stay curious and always.
Yeah, and Ernie said that the more he watches these videos, the more he gets, angry at the fact that all of this stuff has been hidden from us. If you guys don't know what the Decatur map is, do your research on it, because I do believe that is the most accurate map. I want to get John's opinion. I'm talking about this map and how this coincides with when we first met you. We started talking about how America is Israel.
Yeah.
Kind of puts the icing on the cake there, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, considering that, that piece of map that you had, like you said, looks just like the bodies of water over there.
And it's weird that they omitted the Great Lakes, because without those Great Lakes in the way, it truly looks like it could be put on the map of Egypt.
Definitely, that's exactly right.
Interesting. Now he mentioned about how the New World was populated, or people had to be moved in here, which is true. We're considered the melting pot of the world. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to be free. When people were coming over here from Europe, they came through Ellis Island, and that's a whole nother topic, guys. When you came through Ellis Island, you essentially lost your identity, because they made you who they wanted to make you, didn't they?
Yeah.
Anybody know about that topic? And didn't you look into Ellis Island?
Did I look into it?
Yeah, did you look into Ellis Island?
No, not really.
No. Okay.
No, I really don't know very much about it, to be honest with you.
Well, Ellis,
I have been looking into Chicago.
Right. Well, okay, so they had to bring in people. They had to bring in the population, and the World's Fair was designed and put in these big metropolis places in order to lure people to that different area, and they got them there because of the way that the technology that they showed and stuff, and it got the people there. I don't believe that those fairs were for the everyday people. I think they were for the elite. What do you guys think about that?
Definitely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that wasn't a place where let's use the Irish, because that's my heritage. The Irish immigrants who were poor, who couldn't afford anything. That wasn't that wasn't someplace that they were going to be allowed to go.
Yes, us peasants weren't allowed to be there.
Yes, peasants were allowed to go there. Exactly. All right. So with the Chicago Fair, so the World's Fair's events were held for nations to compete with each other by displaying their goods and inventions to the rest of the world, or were they actually designed as an excuse to destroy ancient archaeological heritage? Since its inception, the World's Fair has promoted a variety of functions as an international showcase. The Great Expedition of the Works of Industry in All Continents was the first trade show, and it took place in London Hyde Park in 1851. Now, the world's first fairs took place as an economic revolution extended from England to the United States, and they served as platforms for nations and corporations to show, again, their products. But with that in mind, some of the products that they were pushing kind of raises a red flag for us. And I'm going to show you a picture. This was from the Coney Island. This is from the New York World's Fair. I want you guys, let's take individually and tell me what's your thought on this?
I have a lot of thoughts. Many of the thoughts that I had, I can't say on YouTube, but it leads me to one thing I mentioned in our side chat. During that time, human potential was growing to higher levels for the elites to be comfortable, in my personal opinion. So they decided to perform a reset. Hence, how we live today is a reflection of what they envisioned us to live like. Now, those infant incubators, on the other hand, well, I mean, I talked about it a few episodes back, as far as why weren't there any people in many of the pictures of the Tartarian Empire?
Correct. We're talking Paris, London, Moscow, St. Petersburg, all of these humongous metropolis areas with these vast buildings having literally no people or horses, not even horses on the streets.
Exactly. So how were they able to repopulate everything that was destroyed? Hence these incubators. I mean, we talked about, the Cabbage Patch Kids. I actually watched a video on TikTok about how that name came into fruition. And it was caused by those. I mean, my mama always said that, sound like the water boy. My mama said, yeah. My mom always told me I was born under a cabbage
My
leaf.
mom always said life was like a box of chocolates.
Oh, that's far left field, Hurricane. But anyways, yeah, I mean, it just goes to show you that this type of technology that they have, but we don't have it right now in the most sarcastic way possible.
Yeah,
they still have this type of technology, and
absolutely.
when you suspect that they got these things generated because of what we're experiencing right now, with the thing we're not supposed to talk about and the effects thereof.
So you're talking about the event of 1918?
I'm talking about the event from 2020 all the way up into present day.
Okay, I gotcha. Okay.
I have a really interesting theory too. When y'all get time on this, what I think happened, which is a little bit weird, but I don't know if it's. I don't know. You start looking into this, and just like anyone, you see like these incubator things, and you're like, what in the actual hell is going on? And then you start getting into the trains, and then the mud floods, and you're investigating in there. I'm sure anyone listening to this right now went through the same rabbit hole. And this is one thing that you look at that you're just like, what the hell is going on? It's so weird, right? And so I just thought about it, because that's what I do. That's literally what I do. I have the weirdest brain, and Lori knows, because I'm her best. I was her bridesmaid in her wedding. I'm her bestie.
Yes,
she knows me. I'm weird, but I go about things weird the way I think. But I'm usually right on most stuff, on most stuff, but not always. But for a large part. But this one's had me baffled. So, but I've just been baffled by it, and so I finally today I came to the conclusion. I thought maybe we're looking at this all wrong. And I don't know if I can explain this in a way that it makes sense, but we look at things like from the past up to the future, right? So from the past coming up. But if it was really reset, then we can't look at that like that, because it didn't happen that way. That's not a reality, because they created the history from here going back. And when you look at it like that, you're like, okay, well, why did they do it? Well, I think that when they came over, like, if you just erase Columbus and the conquistadors, erased the history of all that, the Pilgrims, erase Jamestown, erase all that, just erase it, pretend like it never happened, just pretend like it's a clear slate, and think, well, what if they came over here and they saw that what I think had happened was, I think that Atlantis was like in the middle of the ocean, Atlantic Ocean, that connected Africa and America, and like Haiti and the islands where a lot of black people are, because I think that a lot of the black people were on the East Coast too, not really Africa, but that's a whole nother rabbit hole. But anyway, I think it was all right there. And I think that when Atlantic sunk, I think a lot of this Tartarian stuff was during the Atlantic. You got to take away all that, history that they've been telling you. Just look at it like, what could it have been? If that all sunk in, it would have caused mass flooding, could have caused a mass flood. And all those Tartarian buildings, empire technology could have been from that time, actually, And so I think they came and found that in the remnants, which I think they lied about. They made up their own history, the stories they wanted the history to be. And I think they came over here and took over the people, which I think there was a lot of black people on the East Coast, is what I really think, and there's a lot of evidence for that. So I think
well, it makes sense,
I
because
think they lie about everything.
We had talked about this on one of the previous shows. We had talked about the fact that during or before the flood, there was still Pangea, and everything got situated. Yeah.
Right. So, but so then they come over here and they see this stuff. So they bring people in. They have to kill, enslave, or silence the people that are here, which might not have been that I don't know how hard it would have been, and we don't know what really happened. Well, then what they would have done is, these people, like, say that this is the Illuminati family cabal, whatever, they would, my relatives said, that's a long story, and it's not a joke. I'm not really joking about that, but they would bring in people, like you were talking about Ellis. Like Ellis Island, right? So you're bringing all the people. Remember, these are like on my mother's side of the family, like you said, a lot of Ireland, a lot of Scotland, supposedly, a lot of uneducated people, just immigrants coming over, a lot of indentured servants, which nobody talks about, and the German Jews. There's a lot of poor populations who are easily trafficked, or in that time of day, different kinds of ways,
Exactly.
So anyways, long story short, they come in and they get these people to dig up all these buildings, to dig everything up. They have to have these laborers to dig all that stuff up, okay? But now they all know. So then after they all know, they probably already have all this fake history wrote. They probably have all this fake history already wrote and set up. Then once they get everything dug up, because if you look at all the pictures, you never see them building them. You only see the pictures with the scaffolding around the building.
You see a lot of pictures of a lot of people standing around with shovels. Picks and shovels.
Yeah. They're not building it. So then they have, what do? They have to kill them and the Indians, okay? Because the Indians know, right? So you have to kill them, and then that's where they're going. So now all of a sudden, what do you got? You have all their stuff, their technology, their buildings, and you have incubators. They bring in new people that don't know. All they know is the fake history, about that, I guess, whatever, And this is just a theory. And I think these incubators are clone. I don't think that they are. They're like seeds. They're growing these cabbages. Okay. They're growing these cabbages. And there's just a bunch of weird stuff about it. There's so much, just the rabbit hole is so deep. Yeah. Because I went every which way, including what are the babies? Were they for labor? Were they for cloning? Were they repopulating? Or were they for another source that we might not want to discuss on this channel?
Right. Yeah. We want to be careful.
Or Lori will delete the video like she's done so many of mine, because I'm bad on your show.
I have to. We get talking. We go down the rabbit hole.
I've been on the show a whole lot of times. Lori
has, but
I have been on the show many times.
Unfortunately, we've had to put them on private. I'm going to play this real quick for you guys. Kind of a recap when she's talking about the Cabbage Patch. Let's see what they got to say.
I tried to tell you that many people today are descendants of artificial humans and clones, and you didn't believe me. But when I say I got your ass, oh, I've got your ass. So after the mud flood and the Great Reset, they would have needed people to repopulate these cities. That's when the so-called baby incubators come into play. The first time the public saw these human growing pods was at the World's Fairs, disguised as incubators for premature babies, at the same time that they came out with the Cabbage Patch babies. You have to understand, they always tell you what they're doing, You just have to be able to understand the language. By showing us these images, they are telling us that babies can be grown. I know this might be hard for some of you to understand, and it seems impossible. But believe me, nothing's impossible. Any technology that you see them with now, they've had for hundreds of years. So when you wonder where all these children came from in the orphan trains and why there was no parents, because these children were artificially grown. Oh my days. I tried to.
That's basically exactly what you said, Anne. That they had to repopulate the world. Here's the infant incubator in Europe from 1860 to 1890. I'm not going to read it all, but it just says that in the 19th century, obstetricians in Europe began to construct devices to incubate infants in increasingly controlled environments. The infant incubator is a medical device that maintains stable conditions and a germ-free environment for a premature infant born before the 37th week of pregnancy. I'm going to call bullshit on this. I don't believe these were for premature infants at all. I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say that technology is exactly the technology that we have today when we have articles like this that says they have the ability to grow a baby completely and totally outside of the womb. Thoughts? Let's go down the line. I haven't heard from John in a while.
I'm going to say one correlation between incubator and a broad that they pulled out of a museum almost 20 years ago. And she was an egg. Now, that egg was nice. And she's the goddess of fertility.
Ooh.
I think these incubators resemble exactly her technology. I don't believe the gestation of anything in those days was 9 months. I believe it was probably a few days to a few weeks. And I know that most of the Egyptian things that we can call like these med beds that heal wounds with frequency and this and that.
The sarcophaguses.
Yeah, exactly. That the whole frequency healing things or even growing things, plants grow with frequency.
Correct.
And why? I think that the whole egg thing, why she was in it. If you want to go back to like the book of Jasher and the wars of Osiris, Nimrod, I think that they put her in there as like a last ditch effort, and they probably showed that in maybe a movie or two. So she would be, because she took a dead body and couldn't find the 14th piece. So she literally took a 13-piece body, put it back together, had a phallus designed, which I think was the monatomic gold, and gave birth to from a dead body. And I think that egg had something to do with the gestation of that dead seed.
Do you think this goes back to the Nazis when they were trying? The Nazis were essentially
building their super soldiers, or
they were trying to create these. They had like literally tens of thousands of
transduceism is exactly
right.
That's what Russ talked about. It's one thing when Dizdar used to talk about the Black Awakening with the generations of the Nazi multiple personality program soldiers, and I think Russ was really kicking on the fact that they had they just weren't like born every 9 months. I think he literally was saying that there were a bunch of them, and they were they had this transducium technology that was that they could alter the DNA, enhance it before the sperm hit the egg, and these artificial containment. And once you get into that particular technology, you are taking away like the most prominent thing that was of the garden. with the whole cleaving between man and woman. You know what I mean? There was no,
Yeah.
it was a literal cleave rather than, penetrating sex as we know it today. I don't
Right.
think it was that. I think that came after the fall. I think the actual garden technology was such a good thing. It was like you love, like the baby would just, appear. Like,
Yeah, I think wasn't one of the punishments that a woman or that Eve gave to women was the pain of childbirth.
exactly, the pain. So you could tell that's like the serpent's losing his legs. The son of a gun walked at one time. It was a bipedal reptilian. Now, if you're going to add pain to a childbirth, then what was it before that? Well, obviously it was pain free.
Obviously,
So
pain-free.
that's why I think it's, I think the technology of it was God's originally, and everything's opposite in Luciferianism. And I think they were just, they took the making a baby, and they totally corrupted it, like with these artificial eggs, because all I know is Ishtar wasn't in that egg for nothing.
Yeah, and for those who don't know, he was talking about back in what year was it? In was it Afghanistan or was it Iraq?
No, that's Iraq 03. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That that the U.S. government or the U.S. military took out an egg, literal an egg, and it was Ishtar, right?
It was Ishtar, yes.
Mm.
And the other guy.
Yeah,
Yep.
It was the couple. It was a power couple. They were excited.
Yeah, and they're going to be using those to usher in the son of perdition.
100%. I think they're already. I think Osiris and Ishtar are back on the scene. I think they're up and at them right now, and I think they're literally their technology and their atmosphere, literal spiritual dimensional veils, are starting to form people's opinions, people's attitudes. I think we're going to start seeing lots more abundance of higher debauchery than ever thought of. I know we're human, and I know that, we males, females like each other or whatever, but I think it's going to be on a whole way different level that's going to start blowing people's minds.
Yeah, I think so too. Wow. All right,
does CRISPR kind of ties in with all this, does it not?
Yes, absolutely it does. CRISPR technology absolutely ties in with it. I'm gonna play this for us, and while I'm playing this, I'm gonna pull up something to show you guys. Cloning is nothing new. They've had it literally back in the 40s and 50s. So I mean, that's all they're telling us. So the fact that they may have had this ancient technology, when the angels fell and they gave man technology that we weren't supposed to have, they gave us technology of performing abortions, women wearing makeup, hunting, and the use of fire to cook our meat. If you look into the Chinese history, you'll find that all of a sudden they went from crude weaponry to these magnificent katanas that are just it's mind-boggling to see the technology to recreate what it takes to recreate these katanas of the time. So you're
looking at bow and arrows too, and all the advancement throughout
exactly
history.
So when you look at these things, we don't know everything that they showed us because we're not told. We're only told what is written in these books. Everything in the Bible's been changed. Books have been taken out. Lines of, verses have been eliminated. Everybody can say that, the Bible is an inerrant word of God. It is, but it has been corrupted by man. I can write a Bible today. There's nothing that prevents me from writing my own Bible and putting my own words into it. Just like it hasn't stopped anybody from the time that it started being written. So, we're at the mercy of our captors, basically, to receive this information. So I'm gonna play this and I'll be right back.
These Cabbage Patch babies are symbolic. They're telling you that they can grow humans from scratch. And if they're telling you about it, it means they've been doing it for a very long time.
This is the artificial womb facility. a place where humans could be grown entirely from scratch. The devices you see here are called growth pods. Each growth pod is designed to replicate the same conditions that exist inside the mother's uterus. Growth pods are designed to host human fetuses until they are fully developed. These artificial wombs are designed to help premature babies to continue developing after their birth. But emerging scientific research is making it possible to use them to create designer humans entirely from scratch.
These Cabbage Patch babies.
All right. So yeah, he's talking about, designer humans. Let me pull up. Here we go. Again, this comes from the Bibliocalipate site. I share this with you guys all the time. I've been using this since 2013, and I haven't hit bottom yet. This is an amazing site. If you're not using it, you need to be. But it talks about publicly announced genetic events. 1890, a rabbit embryo was successfully transplanted to a foster mother's uterus. 1944, a human ova was fertilized in vitro. And these are just publicly announced. We have evidence that in the mid 1800s, they were starting to mess around with the cloning process and messing around with creating these designer humans, just like Hitler was doing back during World War II.
Where did they get the DNA? I mean, are they okay? So let's say they did make designer baby clones or whatever. I mean, did they take them from the people they killed, or did they take them from the elite, or where is this from? And then
good question.
And then nursing them. I mean, was that like an occupation? Just like you just can't get anybody to nurse all these babies. You got to have somebody who's like got milk.
Well,
they wouldn't have used the DNA from themselves because they're the elite. Their bloodline goes all the way back. So there's no way that they would have used their DNA to repopulate the world, because that would have been the subservient, the cockroaches. Where are the cockroaches, So they probably just would have used DNA maybe from a superior one, so because you want a good slave, you know what I mean? You want to have good genetics. But I think that they think they're above. They wouldn't want us to have their genetics. You know what I'm saying? Like that would just be, they look down on us like that.
So did they profile these people before the Great Reset? Like, I kind of think might be what's going on now. So what I'm thinking is so they're profiling everybody. Maybe they did this back then, and then they figured out, well, this particular person or genetic was not a very good worker bee. So let's won't reduplicate them, but we'll duplicate the good ones, the ones that worked hard.
I mean, you can probably add in the fact that they probably use Nephilim DNA as well.
Mm-hmm. Not only that, but
before y'all change off the Cabbage Patch stuff, though, I did have a question for John. Well, not just John, that panel, a whole panel, but I haven't had a chance to research it, and yet I'm real curious. But I did notice that when I was briefing up for the show tonight, that it said that the boys come from cabbages, but that the girls come from roses, and all this surreal artwork on the, the postcards and the movies and all that stuff about the cabbage stuff. And I was just wondering, with you reading Jasher and all the different books and the different stuff your panel knows, do y'all know anything about that? Because first thing I thought was roses. You prick yourself, it's blood. Girls have their periods, and it's, you know what I mean? I don't know, but I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't figure out why they would say that.
The only thing I can think about that is like the Rosicrucians and Mary Magdalene. They always have the rose with her because they think that the womb is obviously from the Da Vinci Code, set up.
Right.
And if you ever go to any
and the cabbage is round like a phallus, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I think it's because also too, what comes after your cabbage in the garden? Rabbits, right?
I don't know.
That's a
What is it?
story. It's always a rabbit coming after your cabbage. Peter Rabbit.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But the
Oh, the
rabbit.
rabbit.
Now look at the Cabbage Patch story. It's a bunny bee fairy. And last week it said obviously that's the two symbolism of resurrection and birth is a bunny bee fairy. Why would that thing be going around making sure the kids are growing? You know, that's
Right.
Ishtar.
Wow.
Ishtar's is the bunny and the moon, and that I said the rocket Artemis. That's her name also. It's going back to the bunny and the moon. It's
Funny
like
you should say that because I said publicly announced genetic events 1890 was a rabbit embryo.
yeah, exactly. That's the thing. It's all rabbit hole. It all correlates, and it's probably it's not reaching, I would say, but it's like it's so damn sophisticated.
Yeah.
So when you
It's
saying
far
rabbit
more
hole,
in Bloomfield,
when you're saying
there was
rabbit
2
hole,
little
are
white
you
rabbits
referring
on all
to
those pages.
Ishtar hole?
Oops.
Yeah,
Wait,
yeah.
Oh,
There's a
sorry.
well,
No.
the rabbit in the moon. There's like a rabbit silhouette in the moon sometimes, and that's what the Sumerians definitely would correlate. Obviously, the Egyptians too, but they would correlate Ishtar and the moon, the bunny and the moon. That's fertility, and it's just funny to me that they have the bunny bee fairy with the Cabbage Patch Kids, but the whole rose thing, like that's the Rosicrucians with Mary Magdalene, and because right now I see that more and more, and I don't know what it is. I don't know if the entities are bothering me, but I see that pop up on my FYP about the whole Da Vinci Code theory that Jesus was, having children with Mary Magdalene.
Yeah.
It's like it's so abundant now. It's not even funny, and it's I don't know, but it's. I had a thought in my head, and it slipped my mind, but
I'm wondering, did you ever look at the iPet goat, John? Did you ever look at the iPet goat too?
Yes,
Because it had all
I
that
saw
symbolism, had the rabbit and the moon and all that in there.
Yeah, that's the thing, and it's like how that connects. You can see it, and I mean, it to me, it's like a simple thing, but why it's a rabbit, I don't know, because go back to like Lori mentioned about the whole why was that a rabbit embryo, the first one they trained? But now a lot of lost things about Josef Mengele was that he was the main Nazi cloning. Now he didn't come up with it, but a lot of that stuff got transferred from the Hindu, because like I said, Huxley's and Darwin's, they had the nuclear equations in the early 1800s. And they transferred a lot of that, obviously, because they're elite. But the whole thing with Mengele, he would wait. Now, whether he was actually like doing the Holocaust victims or other people in these roundups, he was looking for dwarfs, giants, twins.
He was actually looking for DNA, a specific DNA chain, I believe, or marker. He was looking for a specific DNA marker.
There's a guy that's not really mentioned. He was a Dietrich. He was part of the Anunnaki, and he's the one who had a lot to do with like the Schwabenland. And he could pick, like they gave him the vibrational code, like kind of where it comes from, where it says fee fi fo fum, I smell the blood of Englishmen, like Nephilim can smell your harmonics and know where you're at. Dietrich had the technology from whatever he got during his time in Tibet. He got almost like a scanner, and he could tell who was who, when they were trying to go for these people.
Wow.
And that's why they loaded up all them U-boats towards the end. The U-boats that Hitler had, like 5 of them that were the size of aircraft carriers. He loaded up like the women, but they had these scanners where it would harmonically identify you in your blood. That way, it's just like a hurry up. Okay, that one, let's go.
Wow.
Kind of like the blue lights that are going in right now.
100%. That's nothing new. Like we always say every time, it's nothing new about that technology. It's just it just unfolds. One thing does 5 things. It's like it's already pre-planned. Not that they came up with it, within like human wise, but the bloodlines know, because they're talking to their, fathers from the incursion of obviously Genesis 6:4.
Right.
Big John, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Like in the Bible, it says that nothing's new under the sun. Everything that's done's
100%.
already been done, right? So on
That's
these
exactly, yeah.
resets, we know that they were going in Tartarian, that they used frequencies. They had the technology that, all the church windows are, basically pictures of sound frequencies, and things like that.
Yeah.
And we know they had the free running, or we suspect the free electricity, So do you think that is like how they reset like the same technology, like these blue lights and the 5G stuff? Is there?
Oh yeah, the sound, sound came before light. So it's like even like I had mentioned before, if certain teams or from different countries find these Nephilim in stasis per se, you can't cross a certain line, or the harmonics off of these things, brainwaves, will kill you. And then harmonics was so abundant in the building of these structures that were antediluvian. Like, how did they move these 120-ton rocks 9 miles? It's because they moved them with harmonics. And the same thing with like the Nazis with Maria Orsic. They figured out anti-gravital, or electrogravital propulsion, emitting the green light. So people see green lights in the sky. Well, that's the exhaust systems of these saucers, or whatever type of aircraft has that material. But yes,
This is why they changed the frequency of music.
Well, of course, yeah, and that's the thing. Now, here's the secret to music. If they if they hide certain the highs or lowers, they know which ones heal and this and that. But everybody can have a peek at it themselves, because we all don't like the same music. So that's like the little devil in the details hidden thing. Like, well, wait a minute, how come he don't like country, but I do? That's what should show you how the frequency matches your DNA.
Right. And it either has the ability to heal the DNA, or it has the ability to destroy the DNA.
Yeah, all of it. It can do anything. Right. It can literally close wounds, make wounds. That's why the giants had all the copper. Copper was such a high conductor of the frequency, and that's why I said before, like, if they find mummies with pure copper coins, like, they found a little girl's hand holding a coin with a hand, looks like he just died a couple hundred years ago rather than thousands of years, because it regenerates. And that's why, Goliath wore copper armor, and he told David, make sure you go chop the head off of him, because he's going to regenerate here in a minute.
Right.
I guess that explains why some people, they use that word resonate, like some people I just don't resonate with.
I don't resonate with it. Yeah, because your frequency,
they rub you wrong.
Right, your frequency will
Yeah, and you have a resonator and a circuit board or any kind of panel. I mean, it's like that. That's the thing. It's like electricity. You're looking at your DNA, like a signal in your car, computer chip to whatever vehicle you have. That's your blood. That's your brain to blood to reaction. It's all the same. If the fallen angels gave that, think about it. I mean, they were there during the creation, and it's like, well, they, if they tear apart humans, where they do underneath the ground or at whatever time, they done figured out all the nervous system. It's like, you think a bunch of guys got around the table, and I mean, yeah, Grey's Anatomy is pretty good, obviously, but it's like, there's a lot more help going on with figuring out the neuroscience that, that one day you're going to be able to be hooked to a machine, when the thought of that has always been since Genesis 3:22.
Wow.
And did you say the giants, you had to stay so far away because a giant's resonance could like literally destroy you?
Yes, it could literally
fry
your brain.
His thoughts could be like, I don't like you, Christian.
Yeah, just the waves from it, just the harmonic waves off of it. It's so powerful. Because like I said, if you want to go dig a little bit deeper, when the word cunning was used for the serpent in the garden, I literally think he used harmonics to get into the dimensional veil of the garden. I think he used technology to even get in there and go to Eve and start trouble.
But so here's the thing. So God gave us power over the enemy. We just don't use it. So wouldn't it be the other way around?
We've lost the knowledge of it. It's been hidden from us because of this hidden history.
Well, I'm thinking maybe we could destroy them with our thoughts because we were the ones given the power and authority.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, because of the faith, because of
We
the belief
can, and we
that,
can speak it.
yeah,
Yeah, they
and
trick us
I
because
think,
they don't tell us that words are power right there. So when we talk
Words are
things
very
and speak
powerful.
things, we're actually manifesting them into being. So a lot of people just don't understand that there's all these ways that we can fight and use. Even Paul kind of reflected on that in Ephesians when he talked about wearing the full armor of God. It's not just your armor of God, but it's just every bit of it. Like, but he talks about, because when you're talking, like your tongue and the sword, it's because the words are power and they're. And I don't want to say magic because I don't want to say we're doing magic, but I mean, I don't know what else you call it when there were 3 magicians throw staffs to the ground and they turn into 3 snakes, and then Moses throws 1 staff to the ground and his snake, and it turns into 1 snake that eats the 3 snakes. And I don't know what the hell else you call that besides magic. It's just our magic is way stronger.
We were made in his
way
image.
stronger.
And
Right.
they weren't.
That's
See,
why,
we were
'cause of
made in
God.
his image.
Yeah.
But
Correct.
see, we've been tricked to think, so we were made in his image and we've been given authority. But the reason why they keep us segregated, and that's my feeling. And then
that's the reason for the fluoride. That's the reason for the processed foods. That's the reason why. Because listen, if a person is sick, that their frequencies are off, and if you don't have the proper frequency, you can't. Okay, it's like me putting in a AAA battery into a AA, something that takes a AA battery. It's not going to work because there's not enough power. It doesn't have the right frequency, the right ratio there. So that's why they keep us with the fluoride, the processed foods, the medicines, the pharmaceuticals, all these things to keep us so we don't realize that we have power. Guys, we're 99%. They're the 1%. If we were to ever raise up and knew that we had that power, they would be done. Their power on earth would diminish.
yeah, it's just the prisoners. They dumb down the prisoners so they don't have a riot, because it's
They-
like
one of the ways that I've been waking up.
They don't keep
and
us in a cell
recharging and getting
anymore.
healthy.
They don't have to keep us in a cell anymore. There was an experiment with I don't remember what kind of an animal it was, but the animal was kept in a very small box, and the animal would go around the perimeter trying to get out, and then they would put that animal into a bigger box, and they would go and they would do the perimeter. But the farther the farther the perimeter went, the less apt that animal was to try to find a way out, because he thought he was free. He didn't realize that the perimeters had changed. Does that make sense?
yes, definitely. That's easily manipulated into somebody that's institutionalized, like or like you said, has been in something like that, and then you give them a little bit, and it's like, okay, well, this is better than what I had. They're very they adjust quick and they just accept it.
Correct. And they keep us with our little toys and our things that keep our minds occupied. Now, somebody, I think it was.
I found a way.
Go ahead.
I found a way that I my cheat for that is just this sounds stupid, okay, but it's true. And you can tell the difference just in my appearance since your wedding, Lori, how much healthier I look since I got back and plugged for the Matrix. Big difference, right? And that's on no diet or anything. Here's my secret. I started going barefoot for like about a year at my house. I hardly ever left. And I was outside I know this sounds stupid and gross, but I was outside gardening barefoot. You ground yourself to the earth, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's very healthy and it heals you and it balances you and it just heals you from inside. And it also, I know y'all don't know me like that, but like, well, some of you do. Like Trish, she follows me, so she knows that my research is really good because I have intuition. I have spidey senses that lead me to these stories, and I dig and I find stuff, and I get those downloads. They're downloads,
Her spidey senses led her. Her spidey senses led her to the incubator.
That's awesome, and that reminds me of there's a channel on Telegram. This guy named Danny, Dirt Road Discussions, and he talks about how important grounding is.
It's so important. You don't know.
Anti-parasitics, but that's a whole nother discussion.
That's what I was just fixing to say. There's 2 things in life that matter in life: grounding yourself and getting rid of damn parasites. Okay, those are the 2 keys in life. Okay,
Exactly.
Yes, that's my
We're on
secret
the
in
same.
life, right
We're
there.
resonating. We're
Resonating.
resonating. We're on the
That-
same wavelength.
And it's like with me and Lori, we're like ESP. Like I already knew like what she wanted me. I already knew what to study. I was already studying before
She
before
was
even then she
already
even
on top
contacted
of
me.
it today when I messaged her and said, "This is how we're going to go today." She's like, "I've already been starting it this morning." I don't even have to talk to her. Literally, we don't even have to talk. All I have to do is it's weird. It's just very strange.
Okay, well,
It's
let
like
me
a psychic
ask you
ESP.
this. I gotta ask this because I've been studying DNA. So I understand like if you have given blood to somebody or an organ, the
Yes.
recipient will feel their emotions or whatever, or their pain or their thoughts, and the same thing goes with. Anyways, I'm just wondering. Maybe in a sense we're all brothers and sisters and we're all connected, and maybe that's why we're. I don't want to
But
say
the
reading each
blood's not
other's
in
mind, but
tune.
we're
The
on the
blood's not
same
in
thing.
tune. But the different blood's not in tune with each other. It's like if you're a very unhappy and a dysfunctional family, a very toxic family. Because like me, I may be positive. So if I get sick, it doesn't matter which one of y'all it is. I can take your blood. Your blood, my blood likes it. But that doesn't mean you can take my blood. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So if we are
And I
brothers and
believe
sisters because of our blood, then we're very
each one of
toxic.
the blood each one of the blood well because each one of the blood types resonated at different frequency as well.
Right. They
Then-
fight each other, right?
But yeah, we're brothers and sisters in Christ, and
Yes.
Well,
I don't know.
Once you're saved, you were made new, and you think we all we all have that resonation. Trish, you asked
Because
a
there's
question.
a difference in the body and the spirit and the soul, but definitely, yes, we are one body of Christ.
Right.
Thank
Trish, you
God
asked
for
a
that.
question. You said where I think you asked where did these people come from to get the DNA from?
Yeah.
Okay. Funny you should ask that. Let's listen.
People often ask me, if there was a reset in the early 1800s, wouldn't everybody have to be in on it? Surely someone would have said something. But that's just the thing. Anyone that didn't follow the narrative or speak about the old world was thrown into one of these insane asylums. Did you know that in the 1800s, all across America and Canada, these insane asylums was opened? Understanding that many of these cities was only just founded, where do you think they was getting all of these insane people from? And how did they know there was going to be so many that they decided to build these massive structures to hold them in? This is the Central Lunatic Asylum in Ohio, built in 1832. And it looks just like a repurposed castle. This is the Columbia State Hospital, also in Ohio. And this was the biggest building in the United States until the Pentagon was built. And if you've been following me, you will know that I don't believe they even built this hospital. I believe it was from the old world, and they repurposed it as a detention center for anyone that spoke about the truth. I mean, just look. This is the St. Vincent Hospital in St. Louis, and they say it was built in 1894 and opened in 1895. So you're trying to tell me this took 1 year to build? So like I said, anyone that spoke about the reset was silenced. People often ask.
During this time frame from the 1800s, they built these massive, and you could see that in the pictures, these massive buildings. Think about in your area where you live right now. Think about the insane asylums that are sitting there empty right now, but look at the structure of them. Look at the architecture of them. They were massive. There was literally hundreds of thousands of insane asylums across the world, housing hundreds of thousands of people. Now, I did a little bit of research before we came on here today. During the 1800s, there was only 1 million people on the earth. Okay? 1 million. And we had all of these insane asylums. Currently, right now, we've just surpassed 9 million people on the planet, or I'm sorry, 9 billion people on the planet. They were at 1 billion, and we've now crossed over to 9 billion. And we had all of these massive buildings that were housing these people that were insane. Do we honestly believe these people were insane, or were they being used for experiments for DNA for these babies? It's not out of the realm of possibility, considering Hitler did it himself, correct?
Conspiracy theorists.
Telling you.
No, that's what they were. They were the conspiracy theorists of the old days.
Well, look at it like this. Those asylums that were repurposed for those types of activities, they're doing it right now. Except it's on a more grander scale. But people are still controlled and contained by the elite and experimented on.
You know what I find odd is it seems like they have shut down all the mental hospitals. But why? Like, didn't Reagan do that? Didn't he have them all shut down? So, like, there really aren't. I mean, they might have them temporarily for 2 weeks, but, like, that's why there's so many homeless out in the street, because the schizophrenics and stuff and people who are truly mentally ill have no place to go.
Right.
But why? And is that what, I mean, are they building FEMA? I mean, I don't know. What do you guys think? What's up with that? Why'd they shut them down?
Any thoughts? I'm just going to play this in the background for us. This shows these massive buildings that were the insane asylums of the time. Look, I mean, hold on a second. Let me slow this down. I've got to put this back. Hold on a minute.
I can't help but thinking, just by watching like TikTok and stuff and what they're pushing, it seems to me like we have real mental illness and a lot more today, just because of
we have a hell of a lot more today than we did.
It's demon possession.
Yes,
exactly.
Look at the size. Yeah. Look at the size of this building, guys. Look at the size of these buildings.
Chris, I have 3 degrees in mental health. If I work, I'm a counselor. I'm a mental health professional. And I tell you that I think it's demonic. I think it's demonic. I don't think it's just mental illness.
I believe that too. But I mean, look.
Oh, absolutely. I've listened to Jerry Marzinski. I know what you're talking about.
Exactly. So, I mean, but look at the size of these buildings. When you think about Tartaria and you think about the technology, you think about these buildings, these grand, massive buildings. And, you know, these buildings didn't come cheap. And you heard the gentleman say that one was, they started building it and it only took a year. That's how they did the Chicago World's Fair. They want us to believe that they built one building in 52 days? Not possible.
No,
not
it's
possible.
not. No, I'm in that field.
In a swamp. It was in a swamp.
Yeah, in a swamp. And it took 52 days. I don't believe it. Absolutely nothing. I don't believe that. I do believe that they were doing experiments on these people. I do believe this is where, when we talk about not seeing the adults or seeing people walking in these streets in these massive cities, St. Petersburg, London, and stuff like that. I believe this is where they went. They put these people in a sane asylum. That's where they put them when they did the reset. Just like when they do the next reset, they're going to send us where? To the concentration camps, to the FEMA camps.
Here's the thing. They could have realized what they were doing and the citizens rebelled. I mean, the adults, of course.
Yeah, this is what Canada is setting up right now. If you don't get the you-know-what, you're a little woohoo.
You're crazy. Yeah, exactly.
They're not just doing that in Canada. I mean, Australia, New Zealand, there's many other places around the world. I mean, look at China.
They're doing that here too. People just don't see it, because in my China video, I discussed the fact that once China started taking over America, that they would be implementing their social credit score using various amounts of facial recognition and technology to be able to track us down. But it's all about your worthiness. Well, and it's actually where to place you when they take over us. Okay, once they capture you, and so Wells Fargo, Bank of America, and a whole bunch of other banks actually start using the social credit score here in America on January 1st. We just took out all of our, the only reason I'm on the show right now is because we just took out all of our retirement, put it in gold. And now I wouldn't do I haven't done shows in months because of our money. I wouldn't do it after I found that out. I was scared to do it.
So in 2023, like in a month, they're going to start this.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, because that would coincide.
I literally have pulled out thousands of dollars. Yes.
They're starting in New York City, I believe.
What, John?
If they wanted to implement the same time another, bioweapon release that was much scarier, it would go along with, use your, digital currency or your social credit score or whatever they want to call it. But you wouldn't, it would be an invasion, but they wouldn't be in fatigues. It would be the biohazard suits that would be implementing the roundups, and it'd be a whole different kind of.
Yes, you were telling me that last week, John.
That's right. It'd be an 8-front war.
I think we were talking about that offline.
That's right. We did. Yeah.
So you're saying that what they'll do is they could release another bioweapon, and then we'll save you if we have enough credit score. If you have enough high enough credit score,
they could implement to where it'd be like I said, like an 8-front system, like from the Art of War, because they're going to use Sun Tzu's theology about it. Like you have 8 different fronts going, and it's just mass confusion, kind of like how Genghis Khan used to encircle everything and just close in and kill everything.
Yeah.
So you can have an outbreak in one place of, say, like Ebola pox, which that does exist. And it's scary. It'll be like, everybody's hemorrhaging from these boils.
Yeah,
but it would be like they wouldn't want it to spread quickly. So it'd be probably like a DNA based weapon where it only kills certain, groups or whatever. And then they'll implement the WHO treaty. So everything's happening at one time. So if you got signing a treaty saying that every pandemic overrides the Constitution, local, county, whatever, then you could bring in these, these biohazard soldiers that are just rounding up people here to help, but they're all, Chinese troops or whatever. Obviously the world's armies.
Wow.
But you can have an invasion, whether it's a beachhead. I think they're going to use this whole thing with another bioweapon attack, because it has to be something scarier than COVID this time. People start seeing, it's one thing to see elderly, they succumb to the pneumonia, but if you got TV and you have young people, say in California and Arizona, dropping and bleeding out, people are going to panic and be they're going to do what you know what I mean? They're going to follow the rules per se.
And they started that agenda, or that I can't even think, script, I guess you would say, back in 2014 when there was the Ebola outbreak in Sierra Leone, and
for sure.
everybody was watching it there, and I was afraid it's going to come to the United States. And we did have that one gentleman in Texas.
Get off the plane, and do you remember everybody's carrying the woman wearing the level 5
that was
suits?
in Georgia. That was the one where they were taking her to the CDC, and everybody, they were dressed all in their garb, and
and they had the guy with his suit and tie.
There's a guy standing 3 feet away, nothing.
But now picture when they were there doing these fake things to scare people. Now just imagine the bank is doing what these social apps have been doing by silencing us, except now instead of just silence you on social media, now the bank's going to take your money out of your account to punish you for posting or saying things that are socially unacceptable.
Yeah,
they've said that it's control.
Right. They said that they feel that a person like us, conspiracy theorists or realists or fringe thinkers like us, they believe it'll take 3 months for us to fall into line. Because the first month, they're gonna wipe out our bank accounts because we need to be punished. Then we're gonna fight back. We're gonna be like, F you. The second month, they're gonna come through. They're gonna wipe us out again. By the third month, they're gonna have us conditioned into submission and towing the line. Because
for all the people, I don't want to change the subject, but we took our money out of the day of inauguration, we took our money out of stocks. We switched it into CDs, so we didn't get a penalty. Now we switched it from CDs into an IRA at Noble Gold, which there's no penalty, but it's not actually an IRA, but it's labeled as IRA, but it's actual physical gold that's locked in a depository. But it's labeled as that, so we don't get the penalty or the taxes. So we protected all that, didn't have to pay a bunch of fines, and now we're covered.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, but something just flew across my room and there's nobody in here, and that was really odd.
I just heard that.
I heard it.
Yeah.
The entities are mad.
Yeah, we have a.
I made a video last night on TikTok because my lights kept surging. I go, okay. I don't know what's going on. I go, if there's a ghost in here, then turn off the lights. It went boom and turned off. I went, okay. Oh my God. I was like, all right.
Yeah. It could be like little demons messing with you, but it could also be like maybe you're being watched and it's cats.
I'm sure it's my little black cats that you
it
can't
could
see.
be
They're
cats.
little ninjas.
Yes, there's always cats.
You can't see them. I have 3 black cats, and they're like little black ghost ninjas, and I'm quite sure they're
Oh.
responsible for that creeping around in my kitchen.
Yeah, that's possible too.
I have a video. I cannot play it. I'm not going to play it because it's 52 minutes long, but I'm going to put the link in the description below for all of you guys to watch it, because I think that it would, if we did have time, I would play it because it completely wraps up what we're talking about tonight. And it talks about Odd Fellows, repopulation, orphans, and ghost cities. So I'm going to put that in the description below for you guys to watch, because like I said, it ties up everything we've been talking about. Because for you who don't know, the Odd Fellows, it's a branch of the Freemasonry. And you can kind of tell us what the Odd Fellows are, can't you? Do you want to?
Did you ask me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Let me, I don't have my notes with me in front of me, but they are a side organization. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because I was hoping that y'all would actually cover them, because they're kind of shady, in themselves. And it's always the little groups. See, it's always the little groups. Everybody's always like, oh, it's the Masons. Well, the Masons actually only have 3 degrees. 1 first, second, and 3rd degree. Okay. Now, if you're a Master Mason, you're 3rd degree. Now, if you go forward in Masons and move up to the Shriners, okay, the Scottish Rite, then you have to be a Master Mason, which is a 3rd degree. And under Scottish Rites, then you can actually move up to what you are talking about, this 33-degree Mason. There is no Mason in the Blue Lodge. Everybody gets them such a hard time, and it's just like, it's so not even fair.
It's the Scottish Rite. It's the Scottish Rite.
It's the Scottish Rite, right. Well, Odd Fellows, and then these other little bitty tiny private ones that kind of branch off of those that you never hear about, like the one that Walt Disney's brothers is in. That's where the real evil's lurking, okay? Yes. That's where the real evil's lurking. So it's not the ones that everyone's always talking about. And when they say the 30-degree Masons and and stuff like that, those Masons it's only 3 degrees. I know, because Lori made me quit Eastern Star. She made me quit Eastern Star.
I did. Okay. In my defense, I did not make you quit.
Yes, after I was awake, I couldn't go back to sleep.
I did.
Yes, I know a lot of that stuff.
I hit the Masons hard, posting on social media for quite a while, and I hit that, and I hit the Mormons, and you haven't been back in 3-4 years?
Since 2004, I think. Yeah, it's been a while.
Oh,
but I only just stopped paying my dues like 2 years ago, because I was still paying them, even though I wouldn't go to them.
I have a story about the Odd Fellows. So the Odd Fellows. Yeah. So back in 1984, was when I first married my first husband, and this is weird because the church that we went to, the Christian church that we went to, was being built. So every Sunday we were meeting in the Odd Fellows Lodge, and so the guy that I was marrying at the time, his sister was married to the pastor of the church. So he went to the Odd Fellows to see if we could rent out the hall for my wedding. So we made all the food, we catered it, and we needed to take the food to the lodge the night before the wedding. It was a Friday night, and it was foggy. It was so foggy out. It could barely drive. We couldn't see in front of us. So we get there and we take the food, and my husband, or my fiance, and his best man, they went wandering into this lodge. And about 20 minutes later, they both come into the kitchen white as a ghost. And I was like, what is wrong? And he grabs my arm and he's like pulling me up these stairs into this room. And that's the first time I saw the demon heads and the big red velvet chairs, the high back chairs, and these just it was creepy.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So fast forward to after the wedding, we get to the hall, and I'm going to tell you guys something. I have never experienced a demonic attack on a group of people like I did that night. Everybody started fighting with each other. Red wine got thrown on my new husband's shirt. I thought he got stabbed. The police were called there. 4 people were arrested. 2 people were taken to the hospital. And I'll tell you one thing. Only 4 bottles of wine had been opened. A half a jug of Jim Beam had been used, and about 6 or 7 bottles of champagne. They were not drunk, but there was something wrong with the people that were at my reception. And I do believe it had something to do with the place that we were in.
Oh yeah, I believe that 100%.
Yeah. It was unbelievable. To experience that. So I'm going to put the link in the description below so you guys can watch this, because this is a really excellent video, and it talks about the repopulation. It talks about the orphans. It talks about the ghost cities. It talks about how, and when by ghost cities, I mean these places that were completely void of anybody walking in the streets. Now, again, I understand that back then the population of the world was 1 billion people, so that that really wasn't a lot of people. But you would at least have some horse and buggy or some kind of movement at high noon in these huge cities, and yet there wasn't. So, let's see, what else do I have? Yeah. I do want to, this is kind of off topic, but I do want to bring it to your attention. And again, I'm going to give it to you guys in the link in the description. There is a declassified CIA document called, I don't know if you guys know this, maybe you know, John, called the Adam and Eve story. Are you aware of this?
I've read it, of course.
Yeah, I remember something like that from the CIA. I had read the one that was translated from Arabic.
Okay. Well, the
I have
reason
it
why
on my phone.
Of course you do. The reason why I brought this up, of course you do. The reason why I brought this up is because, first off, I mean, it was a classified document. But the second one is that when you look at this document and you go down here to the table of contents, we've got the next cataclysm. So talking about that, it says, like Noah's, like Adam and Eve's, this too will come to pass. So are they planning a new reset? And if so,
according to them, though, it just does it automatically, because they're saying that in the book of Adam, that Adam is just like a generic name for each time they put a new man on there. In this story from the CIA, I actually read it because I'm just nerdy like that. Then so it's like Nibiru passes by. I really want to do the flat Earth because it's so much nicer. It's so much more peaceful. The round Earth one is very disturbing, because then you got Nibiru and you got polar shifts and you got the whole thing tilting and flipping and drowning us, and I don't like all that shit. And that's what they talk about in this Adam and Eve, that every certain amount of years there's this cataclysm that happens over and over and over, and then they repopulate it again with the Adam and Eve. This Adam is man. It's in this particular book.
Right.
It's not the first Adam. There's been many Adams in this book.
Many Adams. Right.
So that's what the CIA document's actually about.
Do you think this is the reason why we're hearing now this climate change, and we're hearing about the pole shifts? We're hearing about all of these things. Nibiru. You've been hearing more and more people talking about that. You think they're trying to they know that this next reset's coming. This is why they're building the underground cities. This is why they're building the domes.
But I mean,
The
who's to say
Bible.
that document's true? It's just a story wrote by somebody, a book wrote by somebody, you know?
Mm-hmm. Well, when
I
you
mean, it's
but you
not
look
a
at it,
biblical
the Bible
document.
tells us that in the end they're going to flee to the to the mountains. They're going to flee underground to escape whatever's coming. They believe that they can. They believe that they have the ability, just like Nimrod did, to defeat Christ or to defeat God when he comes. Christ when he returns. So all of these things, I think that's what they're planning for. That's what they're trying to put in motion.
I mean, it's got to be the only way to
Exactly.
survive when you look at the history of every civilization has these tunnels, you know? And so that would make sense. If I was elite and I had the money, that's what I would do.
They
So,
have
yeah, I
the
think
money, they have the people in positions and power. How do you know they're not just using the Bible as a playbook?
Oh, they are.
Maybe, and
Okay,
so they use this as an excuse to just like reset the population again because they're like, oh, there's too many people and useless eaters or whatever they call us, cattle or whatever, and let's just reset. We'll keep the select few good slaves, and we'll use their DNA to repopulate, and we'll keep a handful to whatever, be wet nurses or whatever they do. They need.
Well, the purpose of Satan is to create a society based off of his image.
Mm-hmm.
And those who have those who are written in the Lamb's Book of Life, they're going to eradicate it one way or the other. So, I mean, when the time comes, there's going to be a major calling. I mean, the Bible talks about, the earth will be perished.
Yeah, a third.
But God did say He gave us power and authority over all of them, over the wickedness. So when are we going to start healing the people and start, casting out demons? Because that's really what needs to happen. We need to take power and authority over this, and
that's why we're losing, because nobody does that. That's why
mankind
we're losing.
as a society has been too deceived by the Prince of Darkness to be able to see themselves around. And the few that have an open mind and heart, willing to accept the gospel, those are the ones that are going to be able to do the things that you talk about. But the majority of this world, it's not going to happen.
No, exactly.
And even in the church, you're going to see that thing falling away, in which people are going to completely denounce the name of Jesus.
Because they put
Don't you think? Do y'all think? Can I ask y'all something though? Like whenever he comes back, right? When Jesus is resurrected and he comes back, and he's talking to them, and he tells them, go out 2 by 2, right? And you go to these towns and you wipe off your feet, and you do this. He gave them all these rules. But the first thing wasn't about spreading the word of him. It was cast out demons in my name. Like before they could go into town, they had to cast out all these demons and stuff, I guess, before they were even had the opportunity to preach the good word. But then we don't do that. So I think that's why we're kind of screwed here,
Yeah, because
so I'm so glad you brought that up.
You got to take out the trash first, right? Before you,
yeah.
Because as long as they're demonized, they're not gonna listen. They're not. So we have to cast out these demons, and we have to heal the sick. We have to take authority. We have to know our power.
I think you're right.
But if you're politically correct, you can't take authority. You can't take authority and fight demons and have that, because I know that I have authority over these little punk demons. Okay. I understand this. So they know that I know this. Okay. I understand that my God is way bigger, and so they're just little punks that, people don't understand that, and they don't fight against them. They don't stand a chance. Like you said, you're just nailing it. You're nailing it. What you're saying. You have to do it first because you can't get through to them. And that's what he said. Go in there, wipe off your feet. And he says all this stuff to do, cast out these demons before they can understand that. And so, yeah, you're right. Clean out the house first, just like you said, You have to, or they won't get it. It's like a full sponge, A glass of water is already full.
It just makes me mad because the reason why this stuff keeps happening, these resets or whatever, is because we don't know our power and we don't take authority.
Well, the thing of it is also is, the Bible is clear that, what is coming if we truly are coming into tribulation or whether we're living in tribulation, the end is the end. Christ returns at the final trumpet. So, how many resets have there been? if we want to believe the Bible as a whole, as a instruction manual or as a blueprint, you've got the 1,000, you got the 2,000, you got the 3,000, the 4,000, the 5,000, which is what we're in right now, and then you got the 6,000. And then you finally at the seventh is the 1,000-year reign. So,
But there could have been so many more resets than that, because take, for instance, like a reset doesn't have to be globally at one time. It could be regionally, with lack of communication at that time, you wouldn't know. Because remember whenever, I don't remember what book it's in, Jasher, or I don't know, the Book of Enoch or whatever it is. But in it, they're talking about King Josiah, and he was 18, and they're cleaning out the temple. And so the Torah had been lost for many, 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 many hundreds of years. It's been lost. So nobody knew the Torah, which is so important. And they're cleaning out the old Solomon's temple, which is all burned up and destroyed. And as the priests and stuff are going through it, they find the scrolls for the Torah. Well, they read it. And, have you ever read the first 5 books of the Bible? It's really long, okay? It's really long. And so they read the whole thing, and this young king, 18 years old, Josiah, just starts weeping and, ranting and tearing his clothes, and he's just traumatized that they had all been living this lie because they didn't know the truth, So he makes all the people come, and they got to stand there. And they're probably barefoot and hot and thirsty with kids. They got to stand there. It's horrible. It sounded horrible to me. That's a long 5 books, okay? And they read that out loud. And they all got to stand there while they read that whole 5 books, okay? The whole Torah. And he's just outraged. Well, I tried to have a boy, my last 3 girls, and I was going to name it Josiah because I'm so touched by this guy. But I had 3 girls. But it was going to be David Josiah because I love this king. So what does he do after he does this and he tells this to the people? He doesn't sit around and be a puss. Okay, he's not a wishy-washy little punk that wants to be socially correct. He don't give a damn. He rides out like a boss, like a gangster, and he takes every single temple and mosque and temples of high and all these places that the Lord detests. And one of the reasons he hated Solomon was because he gave all these temples of high and these other gods that his wives wanted all over the land. These were all over the lands. And he went and he destroyed them, and he burned them, and he sent them to ashes, and he killed every single one of them. The priests, the members, the believers, anybody that had anything to do with every single one of them. There was nothing left. There was no remains. There was no ruins. It was down to dust. Okay. There was nothing left in the whole land. And there was a lot of bloodshed. And he took back over that in the name of Christ. That's what I call a badass. Okay. That's a badass, okay? That's what we need to do, like that.
That's what we
need. That's exactly what we need to do.
Exactly what we need to do. Exactly.
And do you think maybe God's allowing this is because he wants us to grow a backbone? So he's like, well, they didn't learn the first 5, 10 times or whatever, so eventually maybe they'll get it.
I don't know.
Oh, it's in the Catholic Bible because they have the Apocrypha. It's in the Apocrypha if y'all want to read that. That's where I found it at.
Right. Well, I just want to switch us back around just to talk about the orphans. One last thing that has come to mind, and this is what I found, and I'm going to take this with a grain of salt, only because it comes from the History Channel. But this is talking about the orphans and talking about the purpose. Orphan trains brought homeless New York City children to work on farms out west. We're talking about over a 75-year period, up to 200,000 indigent children went from city to farm. Again, where are their families? Where are their parents? Why were they orphaned? We didn't have any cataclysm that happened that would have orphaned this many children. I don't believe. Starvation, possibly. Sickness, maybe. But this many kids. But we're looking at the same thing, like nothing new under the sun. Just as we see child trafficking today, we had child trafficking back then, and that's what these orphan trains were. Thoughts?
I always wondered if I don't know. I don't want to say it on YouTube. You know what I'm talking about with those cabbage and them kids. Like, I just wonder where some of them are really going. Kind of like the modern day McDonald's.
You know what? 8,000 children disappear in the United States, just in the United States. Those children are going somewhere. They're being trafficked. They're being used for that A word that we're not supposed to say here on on YouTube. They're being
And
used.
apparently they're being used for clothes, even clothes, to make
Yeah.
clothes.
Yeah,
With
and
that
now,
that
now,
fashion company.
and now we've got what is that?
Mhm.
Yeah,
that fashion
Balenciaga.
company.
Yeah. That are
You,
not.
you know, you know what?
Balenciaga.
Somebody DM'd me on TikTok, and they told me about Kate Spade's purse factory in like Rwanda, and I didn't look it up, but they had so many people killed that year where they call it genocide. But then Kate Spade had like a huge shipment of like leather bags, and then if you look in those days, you can make leather from humans to make these bags and stuff. And I thought that was interesting because I was like, well, it correlates because that was a true genocide, and she did have a purse factory.
Yeah.
There.
Was she one of the girls that died on a doorknob?
Yeah.
With the red
She
scarf?
died weird. Yeah.
And then her husband ran around with a rat mask on his face for 2 days after that. So,
Yeah, what
take
was
that how
that
you want.
about?
Well, that's
He's a rat.
what I think. I think they turned them people during that genocide into damn handbags for her company.
Yeah. Yeah. Hold on a second. I'm gonna pull up what is his name? Marcus. Because Marcus Kaiser, our good friend Marcus Kaiser, who's going to be on with us, but he's going through some things right now. He's going to be coming on to talk with us. He put up a post about this the other day. I don't know if he put a post up or if he just put it underneath one of my, and I hope I can find it here real quick. But it showed a jacket.
Are you in Texas, Big John?
I am.
Lori, didn't I show you that jacket?
Do you have it handy? Do you have that picture?
I can
With
check
the faces on
our
it?
chats.
With all the
Yes.
faces? It's horrible.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
don't post it. It's horrible.
He put
don't
it.
post it. It's horrible. You'll get banned.
Yeah, probably. Oh, I've got it. I'm going to show it. If we get banned, we've got another channel.
Yeah, well, they're it's all over TikTok, but you probably won't.
Last second, John, I'll put your channel back up there in just a minute. I found it. Take a look at this.
Oh, and they have the matching shoes, Lori.
Yes, they have.
Make
the
sure you
matching shoes.
accessorize with the matching shoes.
This is what when people are disappearing, when you have these children that are going missing, adults that are going missing. This is what they're doing. This is fashion to them. This is fashion to them.
He probably has a matching set of red shoes.
Yeah,
too.
that's straight demonic. I mean, it's. I think offline last week, Trish. Do you remember we saying about? Did you see the other like pictures from that fashion place with those like elongated skull alien wearing the black latex?
Yes.
That now when I've never seen that before, and when I first saw that picture, that's exactly when I talked about those soul catching entities that had abducted, sort of abducted my ex-wife.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was just being shown to her. That's what Dizdar used to describe, but they put her soul in a box in a black cube, and they look exactly like that.
Isn't there a horror movie and one of the demons is dressed like that? Is it
Well, Hellraiser, yeah.
Hellraiser.
Exactly.
Hellraiser.
Yeah.
Wow. I can't
They
watch
wear
this.
they have the ones that she saw had like umbilical cords that connect them to the ship.
Yep.
But they had on the Dracula latex high neck thing, and they had they're all pale, and the skull's long, and they took her soul and put it into a black cube, but she could see what they were doing to her, and like I said, she doesn't feel she was abducted, like to tell the story. But I had read about that from some of Dizdar's writings, and I was like, well, there's no way she knew about that. That's what scared me. That's when I got away from that. That's transduceism. Those things are the ones that are seen with the Nazis during some of these abductions.
And isn't there a book called Project Soul Catcher? I'm not sure if that's Robert Duncan's book, but it talks.
Yeah, I think
it's about like capturing the soul and putting it in a computer, and that might be the black cube. I don't know.
Well, funny you should say that, because back when CERN, back in 2008, when it first started up, there was a person who came out that said that that's what it was. That CERN was not trying to look for any particles. That CERN was actually soul harvesting.
Yeah, man. There's no
they can't have mine. I belong to Jesus.
Exactly.
No
If
doubt.
they're
And that's
soul
what it
harvesting, that's really scary. That would mean that they're working with archons. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know this plan.
Oh.
Sorry. I don't know what's
I
happening.
was like,
What's
Turn it off.
an
Where's it
archon?
at?
Is
There you go.
Anne, what is that
Sorry,
a
I'm sorry.
demon? Or what's an archon?
it's an ancient.
Okay, so
that's an archon is pre-diluvian demon. Correct?
yeah, it's from the Nag Hammadi, which was a lost book that was Gnostics that was found at the same time. It's from the same time. It's Dead Sea Scrolls and in the same area, and they're authentic. It's just a lot of people don't know about it. They're less off screen because people don't like a lot of their talking, because they actually communicated with like fallen angels, and they believed that this was like a prison Earth, and that there was this draconian reptilian race that and they also communicated with fallen angels, okay? But these reptilian race entities were called archons that fed off like negative energy and tricked us into staying here on Earth and our souls reincarnating and not being able to go up, and they were tricking us.
Yeah.
Kind of sounds like what's happening.
And that's what they believe.
Sounds like now, huh?
Yeah, because
it's real interesting if you ever want to read it.
They can't ascend as we can when we go to the second heaven to be with the Lord, because that's why they're so pissed about it. They can't go. We can ascend to that if you want to call it a higher conscious, but we're just going to heaven,
Right.
But they can't do that, so they just want to keep you here with them. Any means necessary, because they'll never achieve that.
Right, and that's their main goal, is to separate us from our reward for accepting Christ. So exactly.
Kind of reminds me of being in an abusive relationship.
Right.
Yeah, isn't it like being in an abusive relationship? Like you're stuck.
Yeah, and I try to sometimes I'll be in like a really bad mood, and like the demons or something will be talking to me, and it's just I start thinking about negative things like strongholds and stuff like that. Start getting in a real bad mood, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, you little rat bastards, you're trying to trick me and feed off my energy. You're not going to feed off me for free. Yeah. And I'm thinking real positive, like, Jesus, I love you. I start thinking all these positive thoughts and fight back with my mind, like how Paul always says, fight, pray with your mind and fight in your mind, right? And so I fight them back like with positive energy, because I'm like, I'm not going to let nobody freeload off me, especially some negative demon, reptilian freeloader. Not happening. Right. Goodbye.
Hey, Lori, we got to get her in that group if you start it. Let's.
Oh, definitely, and I will be. My husband is feeling much better, so if anybody that's waiting on the women's fellowship group to be started, that is going to be starting, I promise. And as soon as Ernie gets to where his life isn't so hectic right now, the men's fellowship will be started here soon as well.
But we don't want any negative energies. I mean, we're all going through hard times, but we want people like warriors, right? Like people who can help each other, not people who are going to be
they're like
no infiltrators.
If they're negative like that all the time, they're like in Harry Potter, those Dementors. They suck your energy like Dementors. Those are like Argons, okay? That's what Argons are.
Yeah, they're vampires. They're
not to say that everybody's got to be happy and fighting, fighting spirits like warriors, but sometimes, we get in our sad days and we need a friend, but we don't want like shills, like people who are going to like purposely come infiltrate.
Correct. And I've already started the Facebook group for the women, and I will put that up. I will put that in the right. Give me just a second. Here we have. It's called Warrior Women.
Too much. I don't know.
I
don't even know if I'm going to get to heaven. I'm going to be on the 3rd level of Mormon hell, so I don't know. I need it. I need the group worse than anybody.
Me too. That's my number one fear is like, am I going to make it?
Of course, because we all fall short.
He knows our heart, Lori. He knows our heart.
He does.
You can't bullshit when he knows your heart. It's scary if he knows your heart, because I've been getting pissy, especially since the election. I'm really a hateful person. In my heart, he knows my heart.
He does. And then what does the Bible say about our hearts? It's deceitful above all things.
Yeah. Guilty.
Well, the good thing about it, though, is I'm violent, and God loves violent people, because, he loved David. And when David came into town, people said, Saul has killed 1,000 men, but David has killed 10,000s of men, and God loved him so much. So I think I'm safe during this invasion if we kick some ass here in Texas. So I think I'm good, and he's still going to love me. So
I think I better move to Texas. Sounds like all the good people are there.
dude, we had so many guns. We had so many guns pulled out in 1 minute. If you could see, I made a video on TikTok. It's like a little bow, like and you're talking about a big bow. It's like 2 or 3 miles big. It's several farms. The minute she called it, within seconds, I had all the farms around that field where this guy was supposed to be at. We were all on our porch. I mean, we had so many guns, like it ain't even funny, dude. Like right now, I got 2 sitting here on my bed, just sitting here looking at them because I'm bored and I just like to play with them. Okay, because I think it's like a fiddle thing, you know. Revolvers are
Oh my
fiddlesticks.
goodness.
That's what they are.
Nobody's gonna mess
Yeah,
with
we
you,
just sit here
girl.
clean our ARs in Texas. That's what we do. I got my car detailed. Long story short, but I got my car detailed, and they put a whole bag of all the stuff they found in my bag. And I'll have Lori share it with y'all. It's so funny. The only thing in there is all kinds of every kind of caliber bullet and every kind of fishing weight that was ever made. Okay, the whole bag. You would never know that was a girl's car. It was fishing weights and ammo.
That's so funny.
That's what was. It was. I couldn't believe it. I was like, I'm not like other girls, you know.
I think I like you. No, I know I like you.
I look like other girls on TikTok, though. I wear makeup and everything on there, so
that's funny. Give me just a second, guys. I'm fixing the link, and let's see if this one works. I changed our settings. So if you're a woman who wants to join the group, there's the link. Hopefully, like I said, hopefully I fixed it. Now I can't even get it to post.
Before the show too ends, I needed to say something about my show and a preview that's coming up, if you don't mind.
Absolutely, we're gonna do our plugs in just a moment here. Okay, there you go. Let me know if that works. I changed the settings, the privacy settings in the group. Hopefully that'll work. So we're gonna start closing up at 2 hours and 11 minutes. I can't believe time flies so much when I'm with you guys. You can find John over on TikTok. Let me pull up John's TikTok again, and I put the link in the room, and I also put it in the description area below. John, my friend, you need to start posting.
Yeah, I do. I feel that my cup overfloweth, but when I come on here, I can, kind of ramble and release, and stay on topic, because there's so much stuff, and I'm not a know-it-all, but
you are a know-it-all. You're smart.
You're smart. It's it's all because of the Lord, and then, you know what I mean. It's like that had to happen to me, not just because of knowing these things, but of course my own personal salvation, with Him. But like I said before, it came with repentance first. Then this knowledge showed up. Once I went back and was like, hey, I hate to burden you, but I don't get it.
Yeah.
But anyhow, I need to post more. But I find that if I don't talk about it either on TikTok or now that I'm on here, every week, it doesn't build up.
Gotcha.
And I can actually stay on some kind of a topic rather than, and people like me rambling, obviously, but I really just. I want to get a topic to go on TikTok again and make like a series. And I tried to do that before, but I start just going off everywhere with it. And, I don't know if people still find it interesting because I throw everything in there in 3 minutes.
That's why I don't really post on there. It was because I can't really do things in under 3 minutes. I can't just.
It's a hard thing. I have to, it all, like I said, it's just like a blah. It just all comes out at one time.
Right.
I just go with it. But yeah, I'm going to start posting on there and maybe have some kind of like structure.
Cool. And I do follow Big John. We are friends on TikTok. I just don't have my login to do it on my computer. He has a lot of videos. You can see here, lots and lots and lots of videos. And he does pack a lot of information into that little tiny 3-minute video. So head over there, give him a follow, give him some feedback on his videos. And he deserves a lot more than the 64.9 that he's got over there. He needs to get up to 1 million. Let's get him up there.
Hey, we're finally friends on TikTok too.
Yeah, I know, Ernie. I apologize. Yeah, I finally got you on there. I'm gonna. Yeah, I wish I could have my top 8 followers, because I'd add Ernie and y'all on there, like on MySpace.
Oh, God, my mistake.
Hey,
I think
We're getting ourselves here, buddy.
I think we all need to get a letter together, and we all need to apologize to Tom. Maybe
for sure.
Maybe he'll take us back. I don't know.
Dude,
Lori,
I was the mobster queen. I loved MySpace. Man, I was on Mobsters at hard. God, I love that game. Oh,
Lori, when you showed my page just now, you can see the evolution of my hair. It's pretty. I just noticed that.
We're gonna see. Hold on a second. Hold on. Let's get it. Oh, look at that! Yeah. Oh, look. Oh,
talk about Darwinism. Yeah, there it goes. It's
I kind of like it long because you have such pretty hair. I mean,
got the high top, man.
Well, it's bad now, but I try to keep it down. But somebody asked me the other day, do I perm it? And I was like, well, I said those are natural curls, and they were like, wow, that's awesome.
I'm jealous. Oh my goodness.
That's what I'm saying. I like
you
it.
See my wife's hair. It's a snow cap filled with nothing but curls.
Why did God waste all that pretty hair on guys? I don't get it.
I just told you, my wife.
She's an exception.
Thick, curly, Snow White.
Nice. All right, so you can find John over on TikTok. I will put that in the description below. And let us know what you're doing.
Me?
You.
Or me? Are you talking to me?
Yeah. What?
Oh, you cut out for a second.
Oh,
I just cut out for a second. I didn't know. Okay,
yeah,
so
what's
I wouldn't mind having you. I was going to ask you after the show if I could schedule you to come on my show to discuss this, but I wouldn't mind having your whole panel on my show because it's kind of a dark subject, and I could really use these prayer warriors and Christians on there on this one because I'm still working on the LA witches, which I always am a step ahead of everything. So I've been on this before this Balencia, okay?
Yeah,
but I've been waiting to hold off, just like to post it, just like I did that Disney, right? So I've been working on some stuff with that, and it's very interesting. I've been working on that for about 3 years now, but something that really interesting came up when y'all watched the Disney. The last time I was on y'all show, I did it wasn't the last time, but yeah, maybe it was the Disney one I did for y'all. Well, in that Disney one, if y'all remember, I covered some really interesting stuff about Harry Houdini, who was the New York Mason Lodge #1, and he died. And it's a real long story, but go watch my video. It's so cool. And then it talks about how he was an elk for the Elks Lodge #1 in New York, a Mason with the Mason Lodge. When he died, all these people came together, the Masons, the Elks, and this magicians organization that they had there in New York. Well, the magicians did a ceremony. So this is in the Elks Lodge with all the Masons there, all the Elks, and all these magicians. So that's really odd, first of all, okay, for Harry Houdini's funeral, right? So anyways, long story short, the magicians get up there and they do a ceremony at Harry Houdini's funeral called the Broken Wand Ceremony, where they break his wand, which I said on stage, Harry Houdini never showed that he was a witch. He didn't use his wand on stage, but he was a witch. If he wasn't a witch, he wouldn't have had a wand, okay? And they wouldn't have broken it. Well, I was shocked that nobody's even talking about this at all, that at Queen Elizabeth's funeral, they held the Broken Wand Ceremony.
Oh, wow.
Do you know how big that is? She was a witch, okay? Oh my God, nobody's talking about this, and I'm so excited. So I want
Did you see the LA?
That.
Did you see LA witches, Ann? Like Los Angeles?
Yes, because see, Hillary Clinton is in that coven.
Yeah, that's what Larry Nichols came out with.
Yes.
Larry Nichols said that when he was the advisor to the Clintons, he said Hillary went to once a month to Los Angeles for her witches coven.
Isn't that what got Larry? He died mysteriously.
Well, Larry died. Yeah, Larry died. I think he I'm sure, but he was bad off with lung cancer. But but he I think he legit. Oh, Larry, if he did, I'd be sad because I think
he's a fixer. I think he even killed people for them. You know, I mean,
I know.
I think he did some.
I think he did repent.
Stuff.
I think he did repent. I think he was true when I heard him say he repented and stuff for what he's done. I think because he was comfortable towards the end, and You know,
he
that's
gave us
just
some
my
good
opinion about
info.
it.
I mean, that's some pretty good dirt right there.
Yeah.
Well, you know, the thing is,
He
I
said,
think
you know what would
that was
have
part of
happened if
his.
that got out? And he said, my job was to make sure it didn't get out.
Yeah,
You know?
and he let it all out. He let out a lot of heavy stuff, and I think that was part of his repentance was to, you know what, you're gonna bring the darkness to light.
Yeah.
And that's why I think that's why I think he repented, because he let out a lot of stuff like that.
Right. All right.
But it's really interesting, and if y'all want to dig around in that, you might be fascinated by that because no one's talking about it. No one's done a story on it, and that's huge. They literally did the broken one, and that's huge. I haven't never heard of that except for at Harry
I'll have to look
Dean's
into
funeral.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. So if y'all want to schedule a show, I'd love to have you on my show.
We can do it on a Wednesday night and just move it over there if you like.
And I'd love to have your panel with all the guys, Ernie and Big John and Trisha.
Yeah, we can do it on a Wednesday night when we normally would.
I'm ready to launch my show. It's Wolfpack Radio, and I'd love to have y'all.
I just put it up.
I'm not a guide though, but yeah, I'd love to be on.
You're one of the guys though. You're one of the dudes. You're cool.
I'd love it. I missed part of it.
Trish, you're a dude.
Hey, I'm a militia man, but I'm still married, have 5 kids, and I don't, I'm not into men like that, but I'm a militia man, so I'm okay with my sexuality. I'm good, baby.
I'm a watchman. I'm a watchman, so
yeah, me too.
The AR-15.
See, Lori, we're all hot girls. We're secure in our womanhood. They don't bother
so
us.
you can find it over on Wolfpack Radio. I just put the link in there. I'll also put the link underneath for us.
I
want to wrap this up. We can continue talking after we get off here. But I do want to let everybody know who's watching. Tomorrow night, Robbie D is going to be with us. We are going to be talking about this topic, the new draconian lockdowns that are coming. He's going to be giving us some updates of what's going on over in the UK. And they're literally having lockdowns that are going to be starting where they're going to put you into different zones. You're not going to be allowed to leave those zones for any certain length of time. Right here, controversial plans to stop cars traveling between neighborhoods in Canterbury press ahead despite being branded a draconian ban on free movement. You're only going to be allowed to travel no more than 100 days per year outside of these zones. And you're going to be surprised to find out that it has nothing to do with that thing we're not supposed to talk about. This is all in the name of global warming. So we're going to have Robbie on with us tomorrow night, same time, 8 o'clock Central Time. And so, yeah. So next week, let's plan either next week or the week after. We can plan on being over with Hurricane Ann. It'll be the same thing, right? Ann, you're using your StreamYard.
Yeah, and we can actually do it on your show, and I can just record it and then broadcast it on mine if you want to do that
we
too.
can do that.
So everybody's comfortable with this.
Okay, we can do that. And
it's nice when we're on the show. We can do whatever we want. Haha.
We can, absolutely. And also stay tuned because I have a couple of things also that I'm going to put on this channel for you guys. It has to do with Tartaria. They're pretty lengthy videos that we can't play during the show because it takes too much time. Also, I just talked to Ann today. Her and I did an interview back in 2019 talking about the Denver airport. It's a 2-part series. I'm going to also put that back up on this channel. So watch for that. That'll be a premiere as well. Yeah. So I do want to thank everybody. I want to thank Hurricane Ann for joining us. Always a pleasure. John, thank you again for joining us. We'll see you next week.
I'll be here.
All righty. Trisha, thank you as well. Always a pleasure. I love your input. You've been a great, you've been fantastic.
Thank you. Love being here.
And coming up soon, we're going to have Marcus Kaiser is going to be on with us. He's kind of our spiritual advisor kind of person that we want to get his take on the things that are going on, seeing it's the end of the year. So a lot of things coming up the first of the year in 2023. And as a special announcement, got a phone call on Sunday night from Mr. Fritz Springmeyer. He's going to be joining us too, also in the next month. So got some big things coming up. So
big things with that.
Yeah, I can't wait. So, okay, I want to thank everybody in our chat room. I also want to thank our moderators for doing such a great job. And we will see you back here tomorrow night, same bat time, same bat channel. Ernie, I'm going to let you take us out. You want to click the outro when you're done?
I reckon I can go ahead and do that.
Okay.
You know, guys, I say this all the time. We're not presenting you this information to bring about the spirit of fear. 2 Timothy 1 verse 7 says, God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of sound mind. We always got to keep knowledge on the things that is to come so we can prepare. We always recommend to get your houses in order, guys. I mean, as we showed here tonight, there's nothing new under the sun. What they did back then, they're doing it right now. So put on the whole armor of God so you can withstand the wiles of the devil, because the devil's time is short and it's getting shorter by the day and the hour.
Amen.
So he is going to pull out all the stops to deceive as many people as possible so he can take them with him when Jesus comes back to the earth and casts his judgment upon this world. So you got a choice. Either you sit with Jesus and have your name written in the Lamb's Book of Life, or suffer the second and third death in hell.
Exactly.
I mean, there's no other way to put it. And sorry, I've been quiet. I was sitting here absorbing all this information because, you know, this stuff is very interesting to me. Big fan of technology. So seeing all that stuff that happened back in the day that they have hidden from us makes me mad.
Yeah.
It actually pisses me off quite a bit.
Yeah.
So please join us tomorrow night. It's going to be another jaw-breaking episode. And we remember, eyes open, no fear. Good night, everyone.
Good night.